Welcome back to Rhythm Section Life, Conversations with Masters. Here, we don't just talk drums, we dive deep into the culture, the history, and the personal journeys that brought our guests to the world stage. We have some incredible conversations lined up for you. To keep up with our latest videos, tour dates, and exclusive behind-the-scenes content, be sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell. Don't forget to like this video and join the conversation in the comments below. Joining us this week is the one and only, the great educator, the entrepreneur, and the drummer, Gordy Knudtson. As a performer, he spent over 3 decades behind the kit for the iconic Steve Miller Band, locking down stadiums and classic rock anthems worldwide. As an educator, he created and headed the percussion department at McNally Smith College of Music, authored groundbreaking drum method books, revolutionized hand mechanics with his pioneering work on the open-close technique, and as an entrepreneur, recognizing a massive problem with the audio safety, he founded GK Music and invented audiophones, the industry standard isolation headphones that saved the ears of thousands of drummers around the globe. Welcome, Gordy.
Well, thanks. Welcome. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Thank you for joining me. You started playing drums at age 15 and you played your first professional gig at 17.
Yep.
Tell me about your beginning journey.
Okay. My mother recognized that I had some semblance of talent because I would bounce up and down in time to the music when certain tunes would come on the radio, or she had a turntable. They would play records occasionally, and she noticed before I could walk or talk, I would move and keep time to the music that was on there and I'd react to it. So when I was in 2nd grade, she got me piano lessons, and I kind of enjoyed it. I played piano from about 2nd grade to about 6th grade, and had a good teacher, and I was good. I wasn't great, but I was good, and the teacher was always pull my mother aside. Hey, he's got good ears, I started playing clarinet in 6th grade because my buddy got out of class for a half hour each week to go to a private lesson. I said, that'd be great. Let me get out of here for a half hour.
Yeah.
So I did that, and then my mother got me lessons with the first chair symphony guy over the summer after 6th grade. So, and he sorted out my tone and all of the right stuff, So I went in 7th grade, and I was first chair clarinet. I didn't particularly care for it. When I was playing piano, I thought I wanted to play like jazz music, but it was kind of like R&B, kind of boogie woogie kind of stuff. I always wanted to do that. My piano teacher would say, well, you can do that, but first you got to do this classical stuff, So with the clarinet, again, I was kind of regimented to playing what was on the page and sitting at the very front, right next to just behind the flutes, right where the band director could see you. But the drummers were in the back of the room, and there was a water fountain back there. They go walk out, and there's a Jeep, and then bought a set of drums in, I think I was like 9th grade, the end of 9th grade, and started playing. I played backwards, and I'm right-handed, but I used a logic, that back then, this is in the 60s, drummers would play using traditional grip, A few guys played match grip, but very few, and none of them were that impressive at that point in time. So my logic was, well, I'm right-handed. This is the weak way to hold the stick. Let's put the weak way to hold in the strong hand and the strong way to hold in the weak hand.
Yeah.
So I'm playing this way, but playing right-footed. So I'd be going around it'd be like Lenny White, Billy Cobham thing, before they switched to match grip. And I got to my first drum teacher, and my first drum teacher said, well, I think you either got to do this or you got to do this. So I did this because I saw Buddy Rich and everybody else seemed to be doing that. So, okay, I did, I'll do that. And then all I did was play along with records. My mother got me lessons with a good teacher. My first teacher was Floyd Thompson, who taught above Dahlgren's Drum Shop. Uh, and I learned a lot from Floyd. I took a couple of years with him. And then my band director got me lessons with Marv Dahlgren of Dahlgren's Drum Shop. Marv was principal percussionist in the symphony and a jazz fan. And he had, for example, he had helped Joe Morello write the Rudimental Jazz book. So, and he was really into drum set, even though he was played all the classical stuff. And so, but my main thing I was doing was listening and playing along with recordings. We had headphones on. Well, first I had speakers, and then I got, geez, if I got some headphones, maybe I wouldn't have to have the speakers screaming. You know?
Yeah.
And so I played like, and for hours and hours. I'd come home from school, and get home about 3:30. I'd go up and play until dinner time, so 2-3 hours, and then stop for dinner time, and I could play up until it was either 8 or 8:30. I can't remember, and then I had to stop. And at that point, I went on a practice pad. I liked the sensation of playing music. I mean, music has always kind of triggered me, and it was great playing with the records because you could play your favorite tune over and over and over again, you know?
Yeah.
And it turns out that actually set me up perfectly for doing studio work at that point in time. Mm-hmm. It helped.
Who were some of your favorite records to play along with?
Well, I liked a lot of R&B stuff. I liked all Aretha Franklin stuff. Some James Brown stuff. Didn't have a lot of it, but the bit that I heard, I liked. The Motown, some of the Motown stuff. Just stuff that had, to me, it had another level of feeling to it than just playing the notes. There was something else. It seemed to be that to me that there was something else going on there that, you know, just kind of intrigued me more. So I just was trying to become as part of that as much as I possibly could, and then crossing my fingers that I could figure out some way to make a living with this.
How do you think that prepared you for studio work?
Playing along with that, understanding, for example, because like if I did a new record, I'd come home with a 45, put it on the turntable, I'd lift the arm up so it would just play over and over and over and over and over again. Every time I was playing it, I'd remember, I want to put something right there next time. So now I got to play it all over again to get to that moment. And then can I get in? I remember all the other stuff I played. Now can I'll put that in, boom. And then it was, so you had to, I was organizing what I wanted to do and forcing myself to create this entire stream of knowledge or what I wanted to do the way I wanted to do it. And can I execute it? And can I stay in sync with the recording, you know? And just that kind of mentality, even though I had no way of recording myself doing it, which is what's so amazing nowadays, that it just, when I got into the studio work, that the organization part and the quick understanding of rough feel and structure and kind of what was needed to help make the track go was really helpful. The thing that didn't give you was when you're playing along with the record, you're riding along with the feel and the energy that was created and captured. So you're kind of trying to jump into that pail with what that stuff is. When you're cutting with other players in a studio situation and you got a click track going, but then you're also affected by how these other guys are playing, if they play on top or if they play behind, or if they're making them, if they make a mistake. I mean, the biggest thing I remember about I did a lot of jingle stuff in the 70s and through some of the 80s. But the biggest thing I remember is back in that day, we were, I remember when 24 track just came, that was like a big deal. Everybody was 16, and then 24 came. Still, nobody liked to punch in for drums. So the drummer, our track had to be the way you wanted it from the beginning to the end. If
Yeah.
there was a situation where you just couldn't get it and you had the money and the time, you could do an intercut. You could cut so particularly if it was a long thing, like every once in a while you get an industrial film score or something like that, and they might have brass recording with you at the same time, or everybody's recording at the same time. And, it was great up until letter H. All right, so let's do an intercut at H. So we're going to start 2 bars in front of H with the click. Now we're going to play it from there out to the end. Then in the control room, they cut the tape and they put the good half of the first thing with the good half of the second thing, and it's all done. But
Yeah.
most time, 99% of the time, I was expected to deliver a finished product from start to finish in one
Yeah.
performance. Whereas my bass players and the guitar, oh, I made a mistake. Let me go punch in.
Yes.
Like, God,
Right.
So everything that you hear that I've done of that early era is all performance from the front to the back, for better or worse.
That's impressive.
It's an additional stress, which, gets to be depending on how difficult stuff is too, so you're executing something you haven't played before with a click, and you've got to play it all the way through correctly,
Yes.
So yeah, that at some point, sometimes studio work wasn't really fun.
Right. It can be
but
stressful.
Yeah, but the stuff nowadays with Pro Tools, I mean, it's ridiculous. 10, 15, 20 years ago, joke going around, how do you know when you're on a Pro Tools session with the old guys like myself who say, well, after you get done with the first run through and you ask them, how did it sound? And the talkback comes on and said, it sucks, come on in.
Right. You can see, we're going to copy and paste it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And I can time correct and it's just ridiculous what you can do now. So
Right.
it took that performance component kind of out of it in the recording now.
So speaking of the early stuff, this last weekend, one of my bandmates called A Fly Like an Eagle. I went back and listened to it. Some of that early Steve Miller, even Doobie Brothers, is super funky, which I think probably the stuff that you were practicing in your bedroom set you up to play this kind of funky, displaced rhythmic stuff that was really cool.
Yeah.
The drum beat on Fly Like an Eagle is particularly cool, I think.
Yeah, it's great. Gary Malver created some great drum parts for Steve's tunes. To me, I mean, and Steve, his voice is incredible. I mean, even I worked with him for 30 years and he still sings great. And it's freaky. And he's a natural. There's just like with playing any instrument, there are mechanics and stuff involved with producing its sound. Some people are just gifted and know how to do it. They're kind of born with it. Steve is one of those guys, and he can do that. But the funkiest thing on that track is Wahim playing organ, man. That's a diamond. I mean, the tune is great, and the groove is nice, and all that kind of stuff. It's interesting for me to hear you describe that music that way. And here's one thought of why I believe that stuff appears that way to you, because once the drum machine came in and you have all of this regimented or, now we're making everything funky around that. Whereas in the 70s, the drummers were doing all kinds of, it was like trying to find funky little things, and you'd hear something on a recording that someone didn't, oh, that's bad, man. And you could take that and figure out how to do your version of it and then incorporate it into this stuff. So there's a lot of creative energy, and people's work was kind of working on top of, oh, that did that, and then it just triggered that, and that triggered that. And now when you listen to a lot of the drum stuff, it just, part of this, I think, has just come from the guys that write it, are playing
Right.
guitar or keyboards. So they turn the machine, the drum machine is the click track now.
Right.
And
Yes.
they might have a little bit, or now if they ornament it, then it's all this, all this double time stuff. It's
And
whatever.
stuff. And stuff you're like, how am I going to play this live?
Well, yeah, and I don't know. Does it really have? Is it incredible? I don't know. It's busy. There's a lot of notes. There's like a more density in the stuff, and I think there was there was an organicness about the stuff in the 70s, because the only thing you really had regimenting you if you were making a recording was a click track. You didn't have sequencers that you're trying to play with, or everybody throw their thing up on the grid and see where you are in relation to, oh, you're 37 nanoseconds ahead, or
Yes.
I don't know. Does it feel good? Does it sound good? That's, at the end of the day, that's the only thing that really matters.
Well, and like yourself, a lot of the drummers from the 60s and 70s, their influences were players like Buddy Rich or Gene Krupa.
Yeah.
So they were moving from that improvisational type of playing and into creating rock
Yeah.
and roll.
Yes. There was much more latitude. There was much more latitude given for that kind of stuff. That's why somebody like Richie Hayward, Little Feat, or David Garibaldi, or those kind of little different approaches, or even Zigaboo in
I love
Peter.
him. Right.
That stuff's great, man. I mean, and
Yeah.
could a record be made like that today? Well, yeah, but they probably do it with a machine,
Right.
So it's that human creativity that it was like this era or this place in time where this could really flourish. It had opportunity, and the piece that was driving this was in the 60s and the 70s in particular. Heavily culture valued music. I mean, the value of the music to the world was much higher than it is today. I mean, much higher.
Mm-hmm.
And I can give you just a simple example. When I was young, I'd watch, if I was up late playing with the practice pad, I'd be watching The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, because you could see either Eddie Shaughnessy play with the big band, or Louis Bellson, or Grady Tate, or once in a while Nick Ceroli would be there. And the guest list for the show used to be 90 minutes. And they always put the biggest star was always first. So, for example, if Stevie Wonder came on The Tonight Show in the 70s, he would be the first guest, and they would give him a big space time. As time moved on, so you drift into the 90s and mid to late 90s, you go back and look at when Jay Leno was running The Tonight Show. It didn't matter if the musical act was the Beatles. You would be relegated to the last 5 minutes of the program. It was like the least important thing, even if it was, Train or Miles or anything. It just, Miles Davis was on The Tonight Show with Steve Allen and did 3 tunes with Tony Williams, Wayne Shorter, Ron Carter, and Herbie Hancock.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Yeah. I mean, and they gave them all this time. That would never happen today. It wouldn't. People, I don't think, I think that the cell phone and the internet have changed society in such ways that it's difficult for people to just listen to something and be entertained. There's got to be all this stuff going on.
Yeah.
And as a result, a lot of the real information or the real stuff is being missed. It flies by because we're so distracted with all this other stuff.
I 100% agree with you. And actually, in my band, we've had this conversation for well over a year now. Why aren't people interacting with live music in the same way? When we go see live music, the way young people interact with it is because they have some sort of visual aspect behind them. And the
Yeah.
musicians really aren't moving or doing anything. And sometimes you can't even see them, but there's some sort of big visual screen behind that is giving all this information to our brains. And so we're
Yeah.
not actually hearing the music.
I can't tell you how many times that when the cell phones came out, we'd be doing shows with Steve, and they had the golden circle, the super high buck chairs right in front of the stage. Half the time, the people were with their backs to us, with their cell phone, trying to get themselves caught in a picture with Steve or with whatever. And I just went, wow, man. So it's not even about what we're doing at all. It's
Yeah.
irrelevant. Like, I'm here with this. Look at me. I'm
Yeah.
cool. I'm whatever. There's been a massive cultural change, and it is very hard to nowadays to get and hold people's attention.
Right. I agree with that. I've seen that firsthand myself. What are your greatest contributions to music has maybe happened off the stage when you were faced with a physical injury and created a revolutionary single stroke roll technique, the open and closed system, and it's now studied and used in many universities. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, there's a lot of time elapsed from the one part where I had a problem. So basically going back to, I'd switched to this way. I'd been playing drums for about 3 years this way. Then I saw Billy Cobham come to the Guthrie Theater with the Mahavishnu Orchestra. Very first time. First album had just come out. Intermounting Flame had just come out. Guthrie's maybe was a 1,100 seat, 1,300 seat room, half full. I thought I was going to go hear something. It was John McLaughlin, so I thought I was going to be something like the Tony Williams Emergency record, which was pretty crazy. But when we got in there, there were these big drums, these Marshall amplifiers. I thought, good God, these guys they came out and started playing that stuff, and everybody was. I mean, it was just, you went, oh my God. And Billy Cobham, I mean, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. We've never seen anybody do that before. I mean, and the odd meter thing was just, it was awesome. Billy Cobham became a drum god in the
Right.
70s, of which, I mean, he was the cover of Downbeat, the cover of, it was just because he was the first guy who could do it. And he had all of this, plus he had this jazz background. He played with Horace Silver, he'd done all of this. So you had that credibility, plus then you got all this new thing that he's doing, and it just blew everybody's minds. And I saw that, and I went, he was going like this, and I thought, man, that's, that must be what it is. So I tried, and I couldn't get, for whatever reason, I ended up going back to this. I was doing some goofy show in Lincoln, Nebraska, playing behind some acrobats, and I don't know, there were actually before that.
Was it with the bear?
Well, that was, yeah, that was early in, but on that, but there was another guy I saw, because then I started wondering if the match group thing was only good for this really loud kind of power thing. And then I saw Eric Cravat come and play a concert with Bobby Lyle, who had just run the Yamaha organ contest. And he had Bob Rockwell and Billy Peterson playing bass. And Eric played, he had a ride cymbal, a crash cymbal, snare drum, rack tom, 18-inch bass drum, and a hi-hat. And he came out and he played, and he did that jazz thing, all match grip. And I said, it can be done. You can play jazz grip. And watching him was awesome. So I forced myself for about 9 months. I didn't play this way. And then I got this call to play the Lincoln Home Builders show. For whatever reason, they were contracting the band out of Minneapolis. So we drove down, and there was this acrobat act. And, I don't know if you've ever played a circus act. I haven't done a genuine circus, but I've done acts that have been in or ice shows. and you got to catch the tricks. Crash when they get done. You got to roll and all this. And
Uh-huh.
a lot of time we're playing music at the same time, so it's kind of like you got this. Your feet are going in time, but your hands are kind of like doing a Rashid Ali or this real crazy free stuff on top of this
Yeah.
thing, catching the tricks. Well, I was doing all these rules, and I hadn't played. I had a lot of power this way, and I felt a little ping in my wrist. I just so weird. That was weird. Next day, I come back and it's going, ow. Come back the next day, I'm going, ow, and this thing had swelled up to the size of a golf
Mm.
ball. I noticed when I went back to this, it didn't hurt. So went home, found out I had tendonitis because I got a tendon floating over this wrist bone where it shouldn't be, or something was screwy. And when I got a shot of cortisone, it was better. But the doctor said, well, if you had it once, you're going to get it again, probably. In my mind, I was saying, you want to bet? And then that's when I switched to match grip. And I was trying, my whole thing was to be as relaxed as possible, like a wet noodle,
Mm-hmm.
even doing the loud rock and roll stuff. So it was always, I gave away all of this um, subtle control to deal with the power that I needed to get. Because I was also doing some rock gigs at that time, and that's before there were monitors for drums or even microphones for the drums. I'd be playing uh, butt end sticks, tubies. I mean, and just and I could put my hand, reach over here, and rest my left hand on either an acoustic 360 or a was Sun Coliseum. Oh, and over on this side, I had either a Fender Super Reverb or Twin. You could
Oh,
play
yeah.
when we'd play. I couldn't hear a single note my foot was playing. I couldn't even tell if I was in time. It was that loud and that. So anyway, I muddled through because I didn't have a lot of. There wasn't a lot of call for stuff. Um, Early on too, when I was still studying with Marvin, like back in 1973, he called me one day and he said, "There's a guy in town. You got to see this thing this guy can do." And so I got together with Marv and this guy, and he had this thing. But
Oh, yeah.
when he would do it, his whole arm would go like that, and he could go really fast. He could do like 16th notes at 150, and hey man, how you doing? I guess it was crazy. And I just went, wow. I asked him, what are you doing? And he says, well, I'm doing a shuffle, but I just straightened it out,
Okay.
you know? So I messed around with it. I couldn't get it. And he also said, I'm trying to get my left hand together so I could put it together and have the world's fastest single stroke roll. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought, well, that's kind of cool. So I messed around with it. I couldn't get it. And there was nothing that was dictating to me that I needed to have a lot of dexterity for intricate snare stuff. I've always been driven by economics. Where's the money? What do we have to play to get paid here? I kind of let that go, and then fast forward to like the late '80s, about either '88 or '89. I was teaching private lessons at a place downtown. There was a school a Votech school that had started. They called it Guitar Center, and
Uh-huh.
you could get a certificate on guitar or electric bass. And one of the bass instructors, he and I did a little tour with this Brazilian piano player over through the Midwest, Manfredo Fest, and he was telling me these guys are looking to add drums to the program. So I went and interviewed him and made a connection with the school, and I got involved with that. Um, and that's when I also got it started with Steve Miller too. So about
Okay.
like 87, 88. Um, then after I kind of got, probably around like, yeah, about 88 or so, thought, well, geez, I got a lot of time on the road because the road is a lot of hurry up and wait.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
Um, so I thought, what if I start working on this? So I was kept messing with it, and I figured out the synchronization back in 1989. I couldn't play it, but I understood it.
That's
But
great.
also because I hadn't worked on my hands other than just power and stuff that I needed to make money with. There was a lot of the muscles in this hand, the finger muscles and such, weren't developed as much as they should be. I'm still working on trying to get the left hand together. Um,
I
but
think that is the common phrase among drummers.
yeah, yeah,
I'm still working on my left hand.
yeah.
Like we need a t-shirt.
Yeah. I say, you see, I'm trying to still play my own shit. I mean,
Yeah.
but once I understood, the synchronization thing of that, it took me about 10 years to get it to the point of being presentable. My thought was if I could, understand it, I'll keep working on it and figuring stuff out with it. But if I could get it to the point where it's presentable, I could capture it on film or video, and then I've got it. It's like it was so bizarre. I'd show it to people and they say, wow, I've never seen anything like that,
Mhm.
and get that kind of response. So in a way, it was also, it was a proof of concept kind of thing. And that's kind of what it ended up being. What was funny is, so I made it and I found that I discovered a parallel between the single versions using my technique and the double stroke versions of rolls. I mean, a direct parallel. It was just like, oh my God, look at this, this is this, and this is this, and it's kind of the mechanical equivalent. I set it out. I set the tape and the books. I wrote 2 books that I later combined into one because it was overwritten. And I got a response back I sent it to a bunch of famous drummers, and I got across the spectrum response from like even Eric Gravatt. Like, for example, one thing that dawned on me, I remember Eric I should say in the 70s, I had seen Eric. Eric came to town and lived here for a long time, actually. But he moved here in the mid 70s, and there was this great jazz gig called Natural Life, and they played every Monday night, which is the night off for most musicians who were working full
Mhm.
time. That place would be packed with players, and it was the best players in town. And watching Eric play, it was it was awesome. He's one of the greats, without a doubt, one of the greats. In fact, both the leaders of Weather Report are on record in different instances saying that Eric was their favorite drummer,
Oh,
which is
okay.
it's Domino and both Shorter and Zawinul. Um, and anyway, so when the Natural Life gig stopped, we had a little rock band gig, a 4-night a week down by the college. I had befriended Eric, and I said, "Hey man, I know you're not doing anything. You want to come and play congas in our rock band?" I said, "Tell you what, man, you just come in and play Friday, Saturday. We'll give you the bread for playing all 4 nights."
Yeah.
He said, "No, man, I'll play all 4 nights." So he came in, and he's as good or even better on congas as he is on trap set. I mean, it was just, oh my God. But he used to do this thing at rehearsal. We'd be working out chord changes or whatever, and he's sitting there with a conga, and he's doing this little heel toe.
Mhm.
It's the same thing as this, which is what I figured out with how to synchronize it. And it was like, duh, it took me about 8 years for it to dawn on me that that's where it was. Anyway, I did that. I sent it out to these players. Eric saw it and he went, "Meh." And then I had the other end of the spectrum. I had Ed Shaughnessy called me up, left a message on my phone machine. Gordy, I think you created something that's as important as molar technique. It's
Yeah.
it's amazing. So you had this complete yin and yang of some people.
Responses?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just they didn't care, or they didn't get it. So, but I knew it just, and through this whole process, and I kept discovering more and more stuff. Several times I'd put it away. I thought, you're losing your mind here, brother. Just nobody's telling you to do this. Nobody's saying we want this. Nobody's, what are you going to do with it? It was this question that this guy asked me, and I stated, I'm going to try and put the two of them together. So I thought if I did that, it would be something, because it's always about, you got to figure out something in this business
Right.
to put your mark on. So I just kept messing with it, and I kept on discovering more stuff. Like one of the first discoveries were, if you can do this in both hands, it's like you got these little machines. So there are four possible ways I can synchronize my hands doing these movements. I can do it in unison. I can start my other hand after my other hand. I can start it before, or I can start it opposite, alternating flams. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, if you put a gun to my head prior to me discovering this and say, play me some flams, at a reasonable tempo, or you're dead, I'd be dead. Because
Yes.
it was like, I stumped because I just got out of state. I was working on this, and I ended up with this, and I went, oh my goodness, and then I kept discovering these things, because I would be like, I'd go for a while without figuring out something, put it away, but then something would happen that would take, and it would go bing, and a ding, there's a little light goes on, and you go, wow, and it just, the little pieces just kept revealing themselves. One day I was at, one day I was at the vet, and I saw them. They had an ergonomic computer keyboard. So it was kind of this hand position that I was using for this thing, as being very, very natural kind of thing. It was just all these little pieces. I kept on, I did the single stroke rule book. Ed flipped out for it. He told some people about it, and some people at PAS saw it, and then they decided in 2003 they were going to do a special hand development series. And it was a 3-installment thing. Day one was Jim Chapin. Day two was Joe Morello, one of my heroes, who I had never met. And day three was me. And it was like, oh my God,
But that's like a great level of validation for you.
Amen. Amen. I was terrified, but I knew I had to do it. And it was funny, at that point in time, 2001, Steve pulled the plug on touring. We got done with the last gig, and he said, we have a meeting and the thing. So we go up there, and he just said, well, that's it. And everybody went, excuse me? That's it. We're not going to tour. I'm taking some time off. And he ended up taking 3 years off. So in this period of time, that also kicked me in the behind to get this video done and start, pushing this stuff and moving this stuff. So I went and did the thing at PASIC, and got a good response. The first day, or I went to all three clinics. The first day was Chapin, and he had kind of a typical crowd, big room. He was probably half full, 2/3 full. Joe did his thing on a day, packed, standing room only, was marvelous. And then day three was me, and everybody's going like, who's this dude? What's this? So I had maybe a quarter to a third of a house. But Eddie Shaughnessy was there, Jeff Hamilton was there, Joe Morello was there. And I did my little thing. And after I got done, I was wandering around, and I had people coming up to me saying, hey, man, Joe flipped out for your thing. Because he told me, actually before he was telling everybody how great it was. Well, after I met him after his presentation at this PASIC thing, and he was talking about maybe 2/3 of the way he had talked about molar technique and whatever. And about 2/3 of the way through, he said, "Oh, and I recently saw this other thing, in, out, up, down, open, close technique." And I was there with my wife, and I'm going, "Oh, what's coming next here?" And he says, "I hope I get to meet this guy, da 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 da."
Oh,
So I went up afterwards and I said, "Joe, I'm the
yeah.
guy that did the open close thing." And he grabbed my hand and says, "Man, I can't thank you enough. When I was studying with Billy Gladstone, he was messing around with this, but he never really fully developed it and didn't document it. So I just want to thank you for coming up with it." And this was just a single stroke roll part of it.
Hmm.
Um, I went back and kept working on it, and I discovered that you could use it to. It's actually a way of looking at helping rudimental mechanics. Because the thing that always struck me when from a lot of great teachers, just how to there wasn't enough information about what's going on in the entire system. Everybody is watching the tips of the sticks and where they are, and your flam should be, this and that. And but there's another part of the mechanic, and really, all I did was come come to the understanding that this thing is nothing more than the mechanics of a double stroke. That's all we're doing. It's just, and the thing that I brought to the party was the concept that you can stop halfway through a double stroke here. And then because you can stop here, you can choose to place that second note wherever you want versus just always being, well, it's always after I play the first note. But no, you can actually control it. And that little feature opened up things where I said, "Oh my God," So for example, I I was going from double stroke roll to flams, but I was getting frustrated. This isn't that great to begin with, but I was getting frustrated that my left hand wasn't doing it. I say, so why should my right hand have to keep playing doubles? Why don't I just mark time with singles?
Oh,
And I went, whoa, what was that? Then I realized, and I was like, okay. So then I started using just that little kernel of an idea and started looking at the rudiments. And I found, for example, the mechanics, the PAS rudiments are all grouped together in sonic families: the roll rudiments, the diddle rudiments, the flam rudiments, the drag rudiments.
hmm.
What my little mechanical system shows is that there are relationships that go across this grid. For instance, if you take a single paradiddle, you can turn it into a single
Oh,
drag tap
yep.
or flam accent. So a single paradiddle, a single drag tap, and the flam accent are all built from the same mechanics, essentially. There's a lot of more subtlety, and when the tempo gets things change a little bit on the paradiddle when it speeds up. But just using that, I was able to all of a sudden dissect a lot of rudiments that I couldn't play, and all of a sudden I could play them. I could kind of understand them. It was wow, man. This is amazing. And the other thing it was showing was were the mechanical relatives of it. So even if you take something like a 5-stroke roll, if you've got these, since we know that the doubles, this
Uh-huh.
and this and this are all just double stroke mechanics. If you take a 5-stroke roll, right, 2 doubles So there, I used the same mechanics, and I played three kind of different things, but it's all based off of those mechanics, and it allowed. It was like, for me, it was a technical end run around this brick wall that I had with rudiments, and
Hmm.
I'm not a like a rudimental fan in that I'm concerned about using the sounds, but I am a rudimental fan from the standpoint of if you look at it as choreography of the hands or movements.
Right.
If you take the world's greatest drummers or a bunch of them, you isolate one hand what they're doing, and you'll see all of these movements. You'll see singles, you'll see doubles, you'll see triples, and you'll see this, a double followed by a single. There's those are basic moves, and they appear in these rudiments. So the rudiments are really kind of like choreography exercises for your mechanics or for your hands,
Hmm.
so that when you're in the act of playing, your hand knows what to do to make those sounds. You know, um, and it also makes everything much more relaxed, and it gives, because you're giving the close movement is at a specific moment in time. It gives another piece or a body movement to lock into things with. It gives us another locking mechanism, time wise, and it's just, man, when you're doing it right, and it feels like the sticks, everything's kind of playing itself.
It's beautiful to watch. It's super loose and very beautiful to watch you doing that.
Oh, thanks. I keep practicing. I'm 72, and I'm going to get this together in my left hand before I die.
Well, you said, I'm just doing this. All I did was this. But really, how many people would have just kind of essentially laid down and died if a doctor would have said, no, you can't play anymore? But instead, you're like, no, I'm going to change the world. I'm going
Well,
to change technique for so many different people in the world, which is really impressive. I think it speaks to your tenacity and also your intelligence of you can dissect things and create something new that made it so you were successful.
thank you. I have, it's funny. I took uh, there was a thing for autism, like a test, or some survey taken. Hey, I ticked a lot of the boxes, you know. Uh,
Hey, that's okay. We
it,
love those kind of people because we need all different kinds of brains in the world because everybody adds something great.
because it brings, it drives you down this path. So I also knew that it would, if since I was doing this, it appeared that no one else was doing this, and I always like to read a lot of books about self-made people, or captains of industry, and these biographies and things, and the way they looked at things, and why it became what they became, and even like some like Frank Lloyd Wright, did all this incredible architecture, but then he started a school too. I
Hmm.
mean, just, and the other part of it is um, economic reasons. My father is had nothing to do with music. He's tone deaf, but he was very smart. He had a PhD in economics, and so I always looked at it as I'm trying to find music that I like to play that pays well, so I can keep doing this, because my
Right.
father had money saved up for me to go to college, and to me, college didn't make sense. Um,
Hmm.
they're one of the top producers and jingle writers I was working with in the '70s was my age. A guy named Bill Barber, piano player, very talented guy. He was writing and arranging jingles. And then I was talking to him one time, and I found out he failed Music Theory 1 at the University of Minnesota. I said, "You're kidding me. Something's wrong here. If this
Hmm.
this nugget of talent failed in this supposed class. Something's wrong somewhere. So I didn't really go. I went part time for the university for 1 year, and the bulk I had 4 credits or as many credits of drum lessons as you could take, and it was with my teacher Marvin Dahlgren. So that was what I did there. And when I was doing that, I had just started at 19. I had just started doing jingle work too. So it was like things were happening, and it didn't make sense to jump out of this and go learn something that I didn't want to learn, or even another career or whatever. It was like I was going to make this work. Yeah, that's the other thing with this too. It happened. My wrist went bad right about the time I was getting ready to move out of the house. So it was like this freaked me out. Is my escape going to be thwarted? And that's when I took this match grip thing and did this. We just got through it and figured out what I needed to do to survive. Um, but it and
But then,
yeah, it's funny how stuff how stuff proliferates. Like I put this out there, and it took me a long time to find out how many other people had saw it and it had
mhm,
influenced, and it still is. And then when I finally saw, someone else be able to do it, that was a there was 2 guys that did it. Well, one was a student of mine, and both their videos are on my YouTube channel. Jeff
okay.
Peterson was a student of mine, who learned it and could do it better than I could. And another one is a real gifted Cuban drummer named Raul Valdez, who I saw at PASIC in 2002, who had seen it because a friend of mine who could kind of do it was going to these. He's a Cuban guy, Raul. A friend of mine from Minneapolis was going to these drum workshops in Cuba, and he told me when he started showing this stuff, the single six and the single four, to the Cuban drummers, they all freaked out. They loved it. They nutted. Just was like, wow, wow, wow. Um, and then so those 2 guys were the first guys I saw do it. And it took some more time before the few more people started doing it, but then it kind of caught on, and then
Yeah.
that's now a lot of the metal drummers use it for playing blast beats. So my joke answer is, if I'm, I don't know if I should take a bow or apologize.
Oh, do you like moonlight as a comedian?
The music,
Oh, that's funny.
you have to have a good attitude to survive in this.
Yes.
Gotta
Yes.
gotta be able to. Because stuff is
Well,
so dark and so sometimes that you just go, oh my God.
right. Speaking of your 4 credits, and then you're invited back to teach at a university, and people are using your technique at universities. And look at that. That's fantastic.
But yeah, that's the ultimate irony for my father was that uh, here he wanted me, like, here's how intense my father was. He came from the Iron Range of Minnesota. His mother had a 3rd grade education. His father had a 6th grade education. My father put himself through school and got a doctorate in economics. My mother also came from a rural farm community where no one had an education, and she put herself through nursing school and became a full-on nurse, registered nurse. It was 4 years of college. So they were both very smart and very motivated. And the school thing I got involved with, because it was a Votech thing, and because I had connected to the famous gig at that point in time, so it was okay. It was cool. In fact, it was a very beneficial thing early on. As the school grew, it went from a Votech school, then it became a junior college, and there were certain accreditation things we had to go through. And then it became a 4-year college, and at one point we were offering master's degrees. So I'm the head of the part. I've got a high school diploma.
That's fantastic. I love that so much.
And I created this thing. I had great teachers, and I had a guy working for me, David Schmallenberger, he had a doctorate degree, great player, great administrator, and other teachers that we had there, Paul Stieber, I got from PIT, and a guy named Dave Stanek. So we had a great faculty, and it was rather ironic that I didn't get the college diploma debt, but I built one. Is that okay?
Yeah, that is impressive. Can we talk a little bit about before when you were in Minneapolis? Ben Sidran was kind of a key figure for you with Steve Miller's history, and you toured and recorded with Ben in a jazz group for some time. And what was that experience like?
That was a happenstance call one morning at about 10 a.m. Back in the early 80s. I had befriended, because I was going down to see Natural Life, I'd befriended all the musicians in the band. Bass player was Billy Peterson. He was out doing a Ben tour with Ben Sidran, and they were flying. They had to fire the drummer for something, which it must have been awfully egregious because Ben's pretty tolerant guy, But it just, my understanding was it crossed the line, and they needed a drummer like right now. So Billy called me. He says, "Hey, Gordy, it's 10 o'clock. Can you grab your drums and enough clothes and go out, catch a 3 o'clock plane to Chicago? We'll pick you up at the airport. Bring your drums. We got to play the Quiet Night in Chicago, and then we're going to go to Milwaukee and Madison and finish up in Minneapolis." And I said, "Yeah, sure. This is all pre-TSA, all that stuff." So you do that. I went, I did the gig, got done with it 4 nights. Sidran seemed to like me and like what I did. And I just said, "Man, if you ever need anybody, give me a call." So that was it. I started working with him. And I learned a tremendous amount from him. He wasn't teaching me, telling do this I just by watching Ben. Ben always had a lot of different stuff going on. He was the first guy I worked for that showed, or by demonstration and by living it, that you don't have to limit yourself to this box. I'm this, we all have skills and stuff in other areas, and you can use those skills to build stuff around this kind of core thing that you did.
Mm-hmm.
For example, here's one story I like to tell about Ben. So we'd be out playing these jazz clubs, doing his music and the like. It'd be the bass player and myself and Ben, and then later on we were bringing a horn player with us too, Bob Malik, great player. When we weren't playing the gig, I found out that Ben had an idea for a radio show. So he lives in Madison. He went to the public radio station. He says, "Hey, I got an idea for a radio show. I'm traveling all over the place. I could do a little interview show with these famous jazz musicians, because I know a lot of these guys." And the people at the radio stations, So Ben still thought it was a good idea. So out of his own pocket, we'd get to a town. He'd call one of his famous friends and say, "Hey, can you meet me at this voiceover studio with a little interview?" So he would do that, and he would do the interview during the day, put it together to create this radio show. He went back and he brought like 3 or 4 episodes with him, gave it to the same people at the public radio station. They listened to it and they went, "Oh, this is great. We can use
this." Yeah.
That launch was called Jazz Alive or something,
Okay.
And that ran for 2-3 years, and he was always talking to somebody when we weren't playing. Then that came to an end. A couple of years after that was done, Ben popped into his head, I got all these interviews, and he owns them because he paid for them. I could transcribe them, or I could have someone transcribe them, and then I could edit them, and I could put it into a book. So,
oh, yeah.
So he took those and that put that together, and that I think it was called Talking Jazz, and it was a coffee table book, you know. So here was someone who does what he does. He does it great. He's got his thing, you know, but he also built this, and then he built that, and then he realized he could take what he built there and create something else with it. You know, it was like, wow, really cool. He is
Yeah.
he's I just got his son Leo Sidran does a podcast called The Third Story, and it's Ben recently turned 83, and I just was watching the interview was just released. So if you go to YouTube and look up Ben Sidran birthday, 83rd birthday, and this interview will
Okay.
come. You know,
I will look at that.
amazing guy, truly
Okay.
amazing guy. I mean, very very impressive, and that's how I connected with Steve Miller, because it turns out that Steve and Ben were in the same so our Ben was in Steve's band uh back in the I think in the very early 70s, late 60s. So he was connected with Steve, and he just then decided, well, tell you what, let's I'm doing another record. Let's have Steve overdub some stuff on the record. So he did that. Steve had fun doing that. Then Ben said, let's do a video, do a show. We'll shoot it at the Ordway in St. Paul. So we did that, flew in Steve, and Phil Woods came in, and we played and did this. Steve had fun doing his jazz gig. So the year following that, we're Ben's band is out in Seattle. We're playing Jazz Alley for 2 weeks. Steve is out every single night the first week watching us play.
Oh,
Turns
great.
Yeah, it turns out he needed one more record to fulfill his Capitol contract, and he was leasing a studio at K Smith Audio. He had a year or 2 year lease on a recording studio. So the second week we were doing tracks during the day for his, and then playing Ben's for album for Steve, and then doing Ben's stuff at night. Ben was producing Steve's record, and so this was kind of like a Ben Sidran influenced Steve Miller record, kind of
Okay.
called it a jazz record. And Steve, at this point in time, also had not been touring. He quit touring in '81. I think Abracadabra had come out, and he was playing the Sheds, and these would hold 10, 20,000 people, and he's selling 3,000 tickets. So this is terrible. I can't do this. I got to get out of here. It's making me look bad. So he quit touring for about 6 years, 5 or 6 years. We did this record, and he decided he's going to go out and do another. Okay, let's go out and do a small theater tour to promote my jazz album. So we learned some of the hits, and we had all of the new stuff from these records. They go out, announce the shows. The shows are instantly sold out in 1988. Instantly. I mean, it was just crazy. We would, and it was all, he thought it was going to be all adults coming to the show, wanted to hear sophisticated music. It was kids who wanted to hear the rock and roll, because classic rock radio, two things that happened in the time off that he had. His greatest hits CD had come out and was selling 1 million copies every year. Nobody knew it because the Billboard never charted catalog records at that point, hadn't done that. So this was all under the radar. And then classic rock radio, he was in heavy rotation. So we get out there and we're playing these theaters, and we're doing our slick jazz stuff, and all the kids are screaming for the hits. In fact, there's a few recordings that exist where I think there's one is we're playing in Seattle, and Steve, we used to play all blues, and then he would sing
Uh-huh.
the J.C. Ryder lyrics, Peggy Lee's
Okay.
thing over the top of it. It's cool. It's nice. So we're doing that, and it's just kind of like bluesy, jazzy, kind of slow thing, and you can hear people screaming, "Fuck you! Fuck you! Play the polka!" You know, just oh. So we had some of the hits together, but we had a bunch of the other hits. And after that, '88, then because all of this stuff was just blooming like this, we went out and started playing the sheds, and we were playing to 20,000 people, man. It's really incredible walking on
Yes.
stage and having 20,000 people screaming. They're thrilled that you're there, and you haven't even
Right.
played a note yet. It's so loud that I couldn't count tunes off. I'd be screaming at the count of my top of my lungs. And if you were just 5 feet from me, you couldn't hear me. It was
Oh,
just,
wow. That's great.
yeah, it was just unbelievable. So, and in fact, there was a moment, Steve used to ride the bus at the very beginning with us with the band. And there was a moment we were on the coach together. We were watching a video from the show the night before, and they're playing the Joker, and everybody's singing along with the Joker. And he just looked at me and he said, "Gordy, never in my wildest dreams did I think that I would see this happening. 20 years after the record came out, we're still got people doing this and doing this. Not in my
Yeah.
wildest imagination." So
That is so cool.
and he runs a great organization. Everything's tip top professional. There's zero BS. I mean, it is a rock gig, and there is the goofiness that goes along with the rock gig. But when it comes to the business part, everything was solid. There was no nonsense, and it was a great gig. He's a great gig to work for. Everybody at every position, from crew to the band, could take care of business and do their job. It's really fun. I was extremely lucky. I always thought that I caught one of the last big rides out of that era.
One of my favorite things that I learned about Steve Miller is that he would just call random audibles and kind of shift gears. And so can you talk a little bit about that? Because we do that in the band that I play in, and it really takes a special brain, a special group of musicians to be able to do that.
You
And
got
is not for the weak.
you got to pay attention. And
Yes.
it's not a recital, which with some people that can freak them out. I mean,
Yes.
some people need this highly regimented thing, and some people are okay with like driving around. He also there was a point in the '90s, early '90s, where he hadn't quite got his thyroid medication sorted out. So sometimes we would loop around and repeat verses, and I just, hey man, wherever you're going, we're going. And that's the kind of the jazz attitude. It's about
Yeah.
what's happening right now. You go in with the plan, but the plan can change. Something happens, some shit happens. Okay, we got to deal with this right now. How are we going to fix this? How are we going to do this while we're playing? It's kind of like repairing the plane while you're flying. You know, and I enjoy that. We had a British lighting director who was very talented, incredible lighting guy, but he couldn't quite handle the changes all the time. In fact, he would comment to us, "Man, I don't know how you guys do this, man."
Yeah.
Because everything's changing, the arrangement's changing. We're just meandering. Let's go over here for a while. We'll go over here. We'll go over here. And you could see, like, when he would get really frustrated, a lighting guy is out there. He's running the light board, so he's doing crawling the cues, but he's also got 4 or 5 follow spot operators, and he's calling them. He's got a headset and a mic. Okay, number 3, you're on guitar in 3, 2, 1, go. As a cue.
Yeah.
So he's calling out this based on what he believes is going to be happening. So when things wouldn't happen, he'd do the changes, but the changes wouldn't happen like he thought it would. He would get very frustrated. And one night I saw him, he yanked the head, threw it down on the light board. It is what it is. Can you adapt? And
Right.
the people that can adapt are the ones that survive. And
Right. Exactly.
so you either learn that and you realize what it is. But I enjoy that, and particularly on a gig like that, which can easily turn into a recital. And some of these guys, some of these bands out there, it is like a recital. Like for the example, the Eagles, it's just like the CD. It's like, and in my mind, fuck, I got the CD. I've heard that, you know.
Yeah.
Play, just play it. Let's see what your new twist is, or what have you got? Let's something different. But it's just it's a different mindset. When you back away from the plan, you take the risk. Well, we might crash. It might be ugly, or we might stumble onto really cool stuff.
Yeah.
You just never know. It's a punt.
And sometimes both of those things happen.
Yes. At the same time.
Yeah. And really, it helps the musicians develop a special language, because after you've been doing that for so long, a certain amount of time together, you have your own language. So you can almost read what somebody's going to do before they do it. And that is a really cool experience. But it also, I think, for people whose brain types need a lot of stimulation, it's also can be stimulating. It keeps things from being monotonous. And
God, yes. It keeps you. I like to describe it this way: it keeps you in the moment.
Yeah.
Like if you played. I mean, imagine I played Rockin' Me for 30 years. I probably played Rockin' Me, 1,500 times, 2,000 times. So how do you keep playing it with meaning? It's like, so if you're not quite sure what's going to happen, it definitely keeps you on the edge of your seat. I also enjoy, because I have kind of a warped sense of humor. I like it. I like it when the wheels come off, or like, oh my God, that like now you're really in,
Yeah.
we're in front of 10,000 people. Are we going to crash into the wall?
Right.
And that can be really fun. So and that definitely keeps you right here. You can't be thinking about, well, geez, after this I'm going to go, or whatever. So,
looking back on all of that, what is maybe one or two of your most favorite stories of those experiences?
Oh, I don't know if I have any particular standouts with it. I'm recalling off the top of my mind, but I'll give an example of the mindset that that works. So we had the bass player, Kenny Lee Lewis, also played guitar. So at one point he was kind of playing some guitar, and when he played guitar, Joseph Wooten would have to play bass with his left hand. Joseph's a great musician. Great piano player, great singer. He was singing all harmony parts, playing the piano parts. So now he had to play the bass parts, and he could do this in practically any key. I mean, he's really a stellar bandmate. So we're playing some show down in Iowa in some field. So they set up a thing, and it was a state fair or whatever. We're getting near the end of the show. It's the last tune, and we're playing Jet Airliner. And Kenny, who likes to think he's a lot younger than he really is, was getting up there and doing his rock stars thing. We're doing Jet Airliner, and he fell off the stage, and we were up.
Oh my gosh!
Oh yeah, we were up high. Well, we're probably 6 to 8 feet off the ground, and I didn't see him go over. I heard for the bass stop for a second, but then I heard bass come in again. Kenny had stepped off the edge of the stage, fallen down, and Joseph saw this and went to cover the bass. So the bass was being covered. So it was within a measure or two.
Oh my God.
we got done with the thing. Everybody's freaked out. How's Kenny? Is Kenny okay? He had cracked like 3 ribs. He's lucky to be
Oh,
alive.
no.
You
Oh,
know,
my
got
God.
those screw jacks and all kinds of stuff. If he had fallen wrong or on something, he could have been dead.
Yeah.
So he had to he had to we flew him home. He was off for like about 6 weeks to heal, and then he came back to play. But that's the kind of thing that just for just shooting from the hip, and it's just here we go. But those guys, man, it was really good. Joseph and Kenny and I always connected really solidly, and we all, how when you work with people and you feel time in the kind of the same way, there's just a
Yes.
happens. Well, we had that, and everybody was very talented and had skills and would listen. Um, so that was always fun. And we'd make jokes about the rapid left turns that Steve would do, and sometimes I'd say, well, I keep on bugging, or when I early on in the thing, I used to tell Steve, you just give us a cue when you want to go. Just give us a cue, because he wouldn't give me anything. So then one time he would, he'd say, give a cue. So I'm seeing his back all the time, like this. We're playing some tune, and he wants to, and in one measure, we got to be somewhere else. So he's going to give me a cue like 1, 2, 3, 4 now.
Yeah.
Great. Maybe a little advanced would be helpful. But then
Right.
then after you work with them long enough, you start to recognize all the little twitches and all the things,
Right. Yes.
and you're decoding it, and everything goes, and it all works. And then Steve even acknowledged this. It's like, I can fall anywhere and these guys will catch me, and we would. And
Hmm.
and again, that's what made the gig tolerable, because if it was I wrote every night, I mean, good God, you shoot me. It's an interesting world when you're in something like that. People ask me what it's like. The only parallel I could draw, it would probably be like being in a kingdom, you know. You serve at the pleasure of the king, and it's good to be the king. Uh,
Yeah.
but
Yes.
I saw early on people get fired for just moving. I mean, just nothing. It's like, what's this all about? He's trying to control me. They don't, I didn't know, get rid of him. And it's an interesting thing. You've got someone who's famous, who has all this talent, and he's a multimillionaire. I mean, it's a different world and a different mindset. When
Hmm.
you're around it. I'm glad he liked me. We liked each other. I respected him. He knew that, and I know he respected me. And I always enjoyed playing it. I always enjoyed listening to him sing. And some of the tunes, most of the tunes I really dug. Once in a while we have some that I didn't like as much, but again, his voice, I like working with singers. There's something really organic about that, and particularly with good singers. It's harder now. Everybody's got this whiny, I'm in my bedroom making a record, so sad, and I feel terrible. No, I like people that can move air, and I mean, real singers. Um, it's an amazing talent, and when you got someone like that who has this gift, it's like this. You open his mouth, and there's no question about who's singing. He doesn't sound like anybody else.
Yeah.
And nowadays, to me, you put a lot of records on. Yeah, is that the same dude? Is that the same girl? It's the same thing. I mean, there are some exceptions, obviously. I think Lady Gaga is incredibly talented.
I
I
agree.
agree.
Yes.
It's not my cup of tea, always the music, but the girl can sing. Girl can definitely superb musician.
Right. And thinks about like the visual aspect too, which is needed for now.
That too, as well. See,
So,
my mind doesn't go that way. I'm not in the visual
yeah.
production. I was always listening to recordings, so it wasn't
Yeah.
about the show part. But I remember one of the Grammys, she came out and sang something from Sound of Music, I think, one time, and killed it. It was like, damn, girl. You know.
Yeah.
And there are some very talented people, but there are a lot more people that aren't as special, let's just say, in my opinion.
Yes. If somebody wanted to contact you for lessons or something like that, how would they go about doing that?
I'm off the road. I'm at home now. And you can go to my website, which is my initials, GK, and then dash, like a hyphen, music.com. GK-music.com. When
Okay.
I was first getting my internet location, somebody had taken GK Music. I think it was Grandma Catherine's music or something.
Did you sue her?
So gk-music.com. Or if you want to see, I have many hours of instructional material, of drum instruction material at my YouTube channel. So if you just search my name, Gordy, Gordy Knudtson, you probably do KNU and I'll come up in the thing. And I approach my teaching kind of different than other people in that I use a lot of grade school physics, and it's just kind of common sense stuff of like talking about the leverage and how the hands work and this stuff. And it just, it makes some stuff that wasn't understandable, I think, a little more understandable. Okay.
I love that.
Either gk-music.com or my YouTube channel, Gordy Knudtson.